Welcome back to the Whiskey and Wisdom podcast. This episode, you have your constant co-host, Chris Kellum, and I'm with
Tyler Y'all.
And we have a virtual guest with us.
So I am Ashley. I do nutrition coaching. Yeah, I don't know. What else do you guys want to know?
No, that works.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Cool. And Ashley is doing a virtual episode with us. So she's drinking something healthier than we are.
Yes, I am drinking a mushroom. It's like a mushroom blend. It's like a powder. It tastes better than it sounds.
It looks like mud water.
It's similar to that. It's not mud water, but it is similar. It just doesn't have, I think mud water has coffee in it.
Right.
Oh, okay.
This doesn't have the coffee in it.
So I've heard a lot of people talking about the mushroom drink kind of replacing their coffees and stuff. Does it work as well as what people claim it does?
So my clients always laugh at me because I'm not a coffee drinker by nature. So I'm not one of those people that like needs that coffee. There's sometimes I'll crave it, you know, but I'll always say to them, like, the mushroom is so deep and rich in flavor, like it's perfect. It'll replace the coffee. And then they try it and they're like, well, that was good.
But
like coffee. So
I have been looking to transition out of my coffee habit into more of like that mushroom type of realm and stuff. And I actually did a decaf December. And so I almost completely cut out caffeine fully. So, and it made a huge difference.
yeah. What like it with your anxiety or what? I'm curious.
Yeah. So part of it was being like anxiety. The other part too is I didn't realize like how fast my brain was like trying to keep up all the time. I was like, oh yeah, like caffeine never really does anything, but it's because my baseline was just so high.
Right.
So I actually get more done with my natural energy than I did with supplementing with the caffeine.
Yes, I've worked with so many that once we kind of like boost their adrenal glands and just like their overall health, they're like, I don't even need the coffee anymore. And they're like, what is happening? They're like, so
Exactly.
blown away.
Yeah.
They're like, I can do more. And I'm like, well, yeah, like that's your body.
Yeah.
It was crazy because I was super addicted to caffeine for the longest time. So I would have it like right when I woke up, which is terrible for you. And then I would need it maybe a couple hours later. And then I would maybe have an energy drink or another cup of coffee at like 2:00 in the afternoon. And I had a lot of people in my life. They're like, yeah, you need to stop that.
Yeah, no, I think it's definitely easy, like when I do have coffee, to then want it the next day. And then the next day
Right.
it is, I think it's pretty addictive, at least for me. So when I find that happening, I'm like, no, all right, I'm going to have like my tea or my mushrooms or whatever. And I feel like that works for me.
The only time where I really like stray and get back on track of like having too much caffeine is on our recording days where like I just need to be on for 8 hours from one stretch to another. And so I'll do it then and then I have to be off for the rest of the month.
Yeah, totally get it.
And then there's me. I just wake up and go, hello. And my wife hates it. She's like, why are you so wired? It's 5 a.m. I don't know. I'm just like this.
That's awesome, though.
Oh.
Definitely not a morning person, but I appreciate people who are.
I'm a person who can wake up in the morning and go to work and then take a nap
Same.
and still fall asleep at a decent time.
All about the 2:00 siestas.
Yes. Please bring them back. Wait, Tyler, we'd gone down the rabbit trail. What are we drinking on?
We have High West bourbon today.
Nice. So do you drink at all?
I will, like here and there. I'm not a big drinker, but like I wouldn't know what you guys.
Understand. Well, High West bourbon, super clean. Typically, we're going back to the old school days. This to me feels like a spring drink.
Yeah, it is lighter.
It's a little bit lighter, but it has a little bit of a spice to it. So that way you could drink it today when it was like 48 this morning, and then it'll get to 60, and then it'll drop back down. But I think this would be a good like springtime mixer because I don't actually have the notes in front of me because unfortunately I don't have a laptop like we used to. But let me know, you guys. Do you like our suggestions for when to drink these whiskeys? Do you want the tasting notes again? We'll get it figured out for you. And
one of these years.
One of these days. I mean, this episode is brought to you by the amazing location of Kent Street Studio, where me and Tyler are going to be posted for quite a bit, having fun here, just switching it up, loving the new layout. So check out the the visual episode on YouTube, you guys, so you can see this amazing young person that we're chatting with, and also the new studio layout. But we're going to get into it. So, Miss Ashley, you're from Long Island.
I am.
What
Yes.
part of the island?
So actually, I was born in New Hampshire, to be fair, but we moved to Long Island when I was like not even one yet, and that's where our family is from. I lived in East Quogue. It was a really small town by like West Hampton, if you're familiar. So I was like very close to the oceans, but like still that small town. Like I graduated high school with I think like 102 kids.
Oh, wow.
And that was like multiple towns, like going to that school. Yeah, so it was just like a really small, like very eastern Long Island area, if you will. But yeah. And then I moved here to South Carolina, I think about 4 years ago at this point, almost 4 years.
What part of South Carolina?
So Taylor's originally, I was renting there. That was where I had my son actually, in that apartment at home birth.
Oh, wow, good.
What?
I said, was that planned?
It was, yeah.
Okay, good.
Actually, part of kind of the push to come down here, because in New York there's like one midwife place, right, practice that kind of allows home births, and they're very very strict parameters as far as like you need to be transferred because of XYZ. Whereas here it just seemed a bit more laxed, more normal, more like common. So yeah, that was planned. It was
awesome.
It was great, but very painful. And then I purchased this house when my son was about 6 months old, actually. And I've been here since, but wanting to come to the Wilmington area.
So you're still in the Taylor's area, which is like western South Carolina?
I'm by Lawrence.
Okay.
It's like about 35 minutes from the Greenville area. It's still like the upstate South Carolina.
Okay.
Right. When you came to visit Wilmington and Leland in that area, what were your first thoughts of it?
So I was actually really surprised at how much I liked Wilmington itself. So obviously all of the Airbnbs are going to be more in the Wilmington area.
Right,
And I was just like, you know what? And I went with my parents because right now we currently live about an hour away from each other. And we just miss the ocean in general. There's not much like community up here, if that makes sense. Like all the towns are so far.
Right.
And it's, Long Island, coming from Long Island, all of the towns were like 5, 10, 15 minutes away. It's like very similar to kind of how Wilmington seemed. So we just kind of like miss that, like people getting together and like just congregating. And I think having the water, people just tend to like, everybody goes to the beach. There's kind of going on, so definitely want to go there for that. But I said to my parents, I was like, don't judge Wilmington based on the Airbnb. Like, we're going to go see Leland. We're going to go see other places. And we all ended up really loving Wilmington. I didn't think that it was going to be as, I don't want to say small, but at least when we were there, it was very calm and like crazy. Like Greenville, if you go to Greenville, even dead of winter, like it's going to be pretty crazy. Like this, everybody's going to be walking on the streets. It's very city, obviously not like New York City, but we really loved Wilmington. We definitely don't want to live there. It seemed like the houses were very much on top of each other where we looked. But yeah, I mean, we just loved the area in general. It was awesome.
Nice. So did you start your business before you moved down, or was that part of the move down here, kind of starting everything together?
So I don't know how deep you want me to get here, but so my father's son and I moved down together. At that point, I was coming from working in a naturopathic doctor's office, just kind of like shadowing the doctors and like learning alongside them. I was in the midst of doing my pre-meds, finished those, was going to go to naturopathic med school, but I didn't want to get the COVID vaccine. And that was like right when I finished my pre-meds was like right when all the shit kind of hit the fan. And it was like tears. I was like, what am I going to do now? Like what to do, right? So I went and I shadowed the naturopathic doctors, and I was like, maybe I'll just like get my nutrition certification and, kind of just do some things from there. But at that point, like at least I wasn't aware so much of like the online coaching space. So I was just doing like a lot of in person, and honestly, I'm super grateful for it because I think that's where I learned the most for sure. Like even with like my pre-meds and my certifications and all the things, I think just being there in the office and seeing kind of how they worked with patients was priceless. But so yeah, when I moved down here, I kind of just did it like on a whim. My son's father was like, "Don't worry, like after you have Callum, you know, I'll cover the rent, all the things." He ended up leaving a week postpartum, and I I don't know. Like when I look at my life now, like I don't know how I got to here. Like, so I, yeah, I didn't even have family there at the time. It was literally just me and my son, like in an
Oh,
apartment
wow.
in a random state.
Yeah.
Like,
Good
you
for
know,
you. That's major perseverance.
well, so I think that that's, I think everybody goes through bad times, right? And I think that there was a time where I was like, why is this happening to me? Like what did I do that like deserved this, right? But now like coming out of the other side, I feel like I'm able to say like thank you God for this instead of like why me God, because I think when we're able to like take the bad and not just sit there in it and like just fester in that darkness, and we can see the light at the end of the tunnel and like have goals and what am I going to do from this point on, instead of like, okay, this is what happened, I'm going to just kind of sit in this hole, right? I think when you're able to do that, God is going to help you do that and kind of like open those doors and the paths of like, okay, this is going to work out, and like this is how it's going to work out, and all of these things start happening. And I don't think if I didn't go through that, I don't think I would have my business that I have right now. I don't think I'd own my house that I have right now. I don't think that I would be in the place that I'm at because I sought out a life coach, I sought out all of these different things, and I was like, this is just what I'm doing. Like, this is just what's going to happen, and I'm just going to do it. And not to take the credit, I truly believe that like God definitely had his hand on it.
Yeah.
But I think when we allow bad things to be turned to good through God, I think that, and we kind of relinquish our control of like, this is what has to happen, and this is what I want, but like, God, please show me the way if this is what it's meant for me. I think our life works out so much better than if we could kind of control it ourselves. So yeah, I give it all to God where I'm kind of at right now.
I love it. I agree with that completely too. It seems like the more that you leave your hands off of kind of what's going on in life and leave it to the actual creator of how he was created you, I think it makes more sense. And you tend to go down paths that you never thought were possible.
Yeah.
I guess that leads into another question. Is that kind of where mind over medicine comes in? Is that like part of the story too? Because it seems very, or is it just happenstance that it all kind of comes together?
Yeah, so my dad actually has he has his doctorate in music. He's played with Butch Trucks. I don't know if you know from the Allman Brothers. So he has his own like teaching company. He's always had it my whole life, and his is Mind Over Music. So when I was like, all right, I'm going to start my own company, I was like, what should I call this? And not that I'm super against medicine, but I do think it's very overprescribed without kind of looking at lifestyle and all the things. So yes, mindset is huge. We go into mindset. We even have my life coach come on with the girls once a month and just kind of talk to them and kind of guide them more on that side. But I truly believe that the nervous system, like our mindset and just like our overall nervous system, does play such a huge and overlooked kind of, I don't know, it just goes so much into, are you going to have autoimmune diseases? Are you going to have, painful periods even? Are you going to struggle with your anxiety? Are you going to, have IBS, right? That gut brain axis. There's so much that the nervous system affects that we don't realize, right? Like I have worked with clients that have a perfect lifestyle, a perfect diet. They're taking the perfect supplements. They're moving their body. They're going on walks. They're doing strength training, and they're just bloated. They have the brain fog. They have all of these things. And it's like, well, are you just anxious the entire day? Like, do you do any sort of stress management? Have you worked through any, and I don't mean to be like the woo woo girl on here, but like, have you worked through your past traumas? Are there things stored, because you look at Chinese medicine, if you don't, they believe at least, if you don't work through certain emotions, it's going to be stored in different organs, right?
Yep.
So if we, just want to take anger and frustration, which I think is a pretty common emotion across the board, right? That's going to store in the liver, right? And if we look at the thyroid itself, right? So the conversion of T4 to T3, 60% of that happens in the liver. And we're wondering why all of these people, or especially women, I would say,
Right.
have these thyroid issues. when, they're overburdened with these emotions, they have absolutely no outlet to talk about it, to kind of let it out, to even allow themselves to think that like what I'm feeling is okay. I think that we've been so conditioned to think that like if we don't feel happy or joy or whatever all the time, there's something wrong with us, right?
Mm-hmm.
So just kind of like having that freedom to feel what you're feeling and let it out. Don't be afraid to cry. I've come on calls with clients so many times and they're like going through a hard time. We got on a call, we're kind of recapping, making sure that they're supported, and they just start crying and they're like, I'm so sorry. And I'm like, can you just let it out?
Right.
Like, just cry,
Yeah.
because it needs to come out, because we're storing that. And that's not going to come out of the body until we let it out, and it's going to manifest into other things, more physical things, right? So I would say yes. I would say as far as the name and just kind of what we do in our coaching, mindset and just overall nervous system balancing is huge, and something that just is kind of a lot of that missing piece to a lot of people.
So for me personally, a lot of my family members are in the functional and holistic space. I've been following it for a long time. We have brought a lot of people onto the podcast that have been in the functional and the holistic and healthy and nature first. So I guess the question is, do you have a very similar story as everyone else where there was something wrong, doctors weren't listening to it, medicines were making it worse, and you found a better way? Is that kind of how you got into what you're doing now?
Yeah, 100%. So I was always like, I did competitive gymnastics. So I was always like a string bean, always very strong, like, didn't have any issues. I could eat pretty much whatever I wanted and really not have an issue. And then I started, you go through that phase of partying, staying up all night, like all of that stuff, right? Eating taquitos from 7-Eleven at 4 a.m.
Gosh.
I never thought I'd do it until I was
Exactly.
4. But I started having digestive issues, bloating. I gained a good amount of weight very quickly, and I didn't really understand what was happening. I had dermatitis, kind of like around my nose. I was always tired. I was waking up multiple times throughout the night. And at this point, I didn't really know much at all about like naturopathic medicine, or that there were even doctors that kind of practiced that, right?
Right.
Like all I knew was the doctor I go to when I have a sore throat, and that was pretty much it. So I actually had a boyfriend at the time who was more into like that natural type healing. And he was like, why don't you go see like a naturopath? But kind of back up there. So I went to see my normal doctor. And
Right.
she basically was like, hand to God, she was like, you should just try doing some sit-ups. It was like,
That'll
and
fix it all.
I didn't say anything. Like I was pretty young at that point, and like I didn't know how to communicate back to that. I was
Right.
kind
Yeah.
of okay, and I just kind of like left.
Right.
I didn't know what was happening, and I think that just like that in and of itself is so huge, because think of how many times that probably happens to a woman in a different way, right? Maybe they're not saying go and do sit-ups, but like let's say that somebody comes in with painful periods, or maybe they didn't go to the bathroom, go poop for 7 days, and they're like, oh, why don't you take some Miralax, and it's like, well, that's really not going to do anything to the root cause of the problem there. But I felt so like I was the issue, that like I was the problem, and like
Yeah.
I just needed to go do sit-ups, right? And like I knew it wasn't like I needed to do sit-ups because it was bloating. Like
Yeah.
I wasn't fat, like I
Right,
was
yeah.
just super bloated. So then I went to a GI doctor, and he, no lie, gave me this. It was like a gallon jug with like this powder on the bottom, basically to like help me go to the bathroom. But I did go to the bathroom. Like that wasn't like my issue. I just was super bloated. So he gave me this stuff. It was supposed to help me go to the bathroom, and I was supposed to drink the entire thing. So the powder on the bottom, I was supposed to fill the rest up with water and drink it all. I tried. I got like a couple sips down, and I was like, I just can't do this. And I started crying again, right? I'm thinking like I failed my body. This is what I have to do to feel better. It was just a disaster. So then I did find a naturopathic doctor, and he did kind of take more time just like explaining to me, okay, you have an overgrowth of this bacteria. This is what kind of happens as a result of it. This is what we need to do to kind of fix it, bring it back into baseline. So there were things that he did that helped, but there were also things that he did that kind of made it worse that I can understand now. So he gave me like a probiotic first, like right off the bat. And if there are any people listening on here that know anything about gut health, if your gut's really bad, you can't just take a probiotic. It's going to make things a lot worse, right? So that's kind of what happened to me. So I eventually got to the point where I was just like, F all of this. I'm not taking anything anymore. And I was like, I am going to figure this out. Like I am a very strong-headed person. I'm just going to do this. So I just completely changed my diet, completely changed my lifestyle, switched out actually like my household products, my personal care products, a whole bunch of things, a whole bunch of things. I probably spent tens of thousands at the end of it, like just on doctors and different creams and all the things. And if I could have me now, then like, that would have been great.
And that's what you're doing, right? You're kind of helping those other women that are in the very similar part that you were in, and just kind of, hey, let's skip all of the creams and probiotics, and let's get down to business here.
Yeah.
So
yeah, go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, because you've transitioned from mostly in person to like online, helping clients and like helping people all across. How does that work? I've always been curious, like when you do virtual consultations and working with somebody, because I know plenty of people who were like, when COVID hit, they're like, the doctor is useless because telecommunication, like not being in person doesn't always work. But I feel like what you've shown and like the people you've been working with, they actually have shown improvements.
So I think that, I don't know for sure, but I would have to, venture to guess with the telehealth, what are they talking to you about? It's like you go to the doctor and you're pretty much going to expect to get a prescription written for you. So it's like, how can they really be helpful when like you're getting on a call with them to try to help you when it's like that's not really what they're kind of like trained to do? Do you know what I'm saying? So what we do is we use Trainer Eyes. So it's basically just like an app, a platform. I do have an assistant coach, Casey, who builds out like the workouts, helps me with coaching, things like that. So all of their workouts live there. Like they all have their own personalized calendar. We do also send them like lessons, about 2 each week. So one from me and then one from my assistant Casey. And it's from us, we personalize it to what they need. We get on a call with them initially, kind of just figure out, what are you dealing with? What's kind of your goals here? It's usually just like a 3 to 5 minute video from the both of us going over a certain lesson that we want them to kind of master before kind of going on to the next. Each week though, we do get on live with all of them. It's really awesome. I'm in tears. Probably, at least one call a month with them because it really has become like a family. So we get on, it's about an hour. Sometimes it runs like an hour and a half with them. And we kind of just use that time to go over their check-in. We do send them a check-in. So if they have any questions, they put it on there. We go over it on the call so that everybody can kind of learn from each other too, right? Because somebody might have a question that somebody else never thought about and they're like, wow, like I needed that answer and I wouldn't have even known to ask it, right? But it's also, that community and like that kind of cheerleading squad that I don't think a lot of people have. And, when they kind of go on this path of wellness and this whole transition, a lot of times they get pushback from like their family or their friends or whatever. And this is like that place where everybody's going through the same thing. Everybody's sharing their own experiences. Everybody's kind of like, learning from each other and kind of building momentum in their own journey from each other, right? Because we're all sharing our wins. We're also sharing struggles, right? And we're kind of helping each other through that. So on that call, we're also kind of just figuring out, what is working, what's not working, how can we continue to program each of their kind of lessons continuing on from there. Yeah, I don't know. It's pretty awesome. We do live calls with them, one-on-one if they need it. But they have access to us every single day through a chat. So yeah, they they usually don't like a one-on-one, but it's just, I love it. It's awesome.
You do touch on something that's really important too. When, like you said, when you go to the doctor's like, hey, you're the issue, like go figure something out. Or I'm going to tell you something absolutely like ridiculous that's not actually going to help you. I'm sure it does feel very lonely, I guess you could say. So having that group of girls together, just kind of getting together and talking about what's going on and the struggles that they're going on together and the wins that they have together, I'm sure it's really powerful for all of them.
That's what I mean. Like I'm in tears, maybe even more than one call a month because it really is so, I don't even know how to put it into words. It's just the most, I'm honored. It's like a blessing for me to be able to help these women because, like I said, a lot of times they get on that initial call and they talk about everything that they've been through. A lot of times they're in tears because they're like, I don't even know what to do anymore. Like, I kind of am just talking to you because I just sound like I'm not really expecting you to be able to fix this, right? And then they get through the program and they're like, holy shit, like what just happened? How did this even happen? Right? Like I have a client right now that's in her second trimester. She went through, I think it was 3 years of infertility and miscarriages through all of it. Um, Nobody ever asked her, okay, how are your how's your thyroid, right? How are your hormones? What are you eating? Are you eating enough? Are you eating enough to support your metabolic processes plus growing this baby, right? Like, what is actually going on here? And it's like miscarriage after miscarriage. It's like, let's just try the same thing over and over again. It's like, so the fact that this lady is about to have a baby,
Oh, wow.
in 3 months, like that's, not to say, oh, wow, me, it's like, wow, like that's God, right? I truly believe even like our connection and like coming, our paths crossing, I don't think it's a coincidence. And I feel that with every single client. It's like, you were kind of at this place where you didn't know where else to turn and you kind of were at your wits' end, ready to give up. And now I'm able to kind of watch them truly become this entirely different person. Not even by the end, literally by like a couple weeks in, if they're really diligent and they're doing all the things that, we're asking them to do. So
Right.
it's just, it's more than I can take. I'll start crying right now.
Do you notice when people are coming to you that they are more willing to do what you and your, I guess, co-founder of it are putting out there because they are searching these alternatives, that there's probably a higher adoption rate than someone going to a traditional Western medicine doctor?
Yes, 100%. So I think that that's kind of my ideal client, right? Is like, you've tried all the things. Like, I don't want you to come to me and try this, but then also feel like, let me go try the 5 other things that my doctor's saying. It's like, I would rather you have tried those 5 things first and then get to this point, right? Because I've worked with clients, one specifically comes to my mind that, and no down to her, but very trusting of doctors. And very much, oh, birth control doesn't do anything. It's not going to affect me. It's just stops me from having babies, right? It's like, and when they're doing, more of those Western things and then trying to couple it with this, it's like, well, we can only really get so far, right?
Yeah.
So far that I can really take you. And then they're like, well, why isn't XYZ? And I'm like, well, because you're taking a synthetic estrogen every single day that's affecting your gut and, tearing that apart and affecting your liver, your lymphatic system. And it's like, well, I can only do so much with what you're willing, and that's fine, right? But we also need to kind of have that middle ground of this is what reality is, right? I think that's where that comes in, is sometimes clients want you to change reality, right? And it's like, I can't change reality. I can just kind of tell you the facts and guide you from there, but I can't change facts.
Right.
That makes sense.
Exactly. If you're putting poison into your body, there's only so much healthy eating and working out you can do before the poison takes over.
Right. Especially, I mean, some women are on birth control for upwards of 10 years.
Wow.
And they're like, well, I didn't have any effects of this, when I first started. Like, well, we're 10 years down the line now.
It adds up.
Yeah. Gosh.
It is amazing kind of seeing the huge transition of like, what's the easiest, quickest way of getting birth control into a human being from like when I was in high school to now when we're like, you know what, this is actually not good for me.
Yeah.
So it is interesting and probably very good that people are realizing and starting to listen to their bodies more as opposed to the drugs that you hear on TV.
Yeah. And, even if we look at the fertility rates right now, like our generation is like, that was the birth control. That was at least like,
Yeah.
a lot of the pills. And if we look at the statistics right now, infertility is at an all-time high. And it's like, you can't tell me that it's not because of birth control. Like, I see clients all the time. They're coming off of birth control. They're like, all right, I want to have a kid. And it's like, well, now you have PCOS, you have endometriosis, all these things. And it's like, it's heartbreaking because they didn't know that this was what was going to come as a result of just simply taking this pill that, doctors are just prescribing like it's no big deal. There's no side effects. It just clears up your acne and it gets rid of your painful periods. And it's like, well, no.
Right.
Yeah.
Band-aiding it. But yeah, I don't know.
So is there a person that comes to you that's like I guess you could say typical client that's seeking your services? Like if you could describe like the average human being that's coming to you, if you can, because not everyone's gonna be average, right? But the typical thing that comes to you that you can typically get them fixed.
So a very wide range, right? Because gut health is going to lead to a lot of other different issues, right? If that's not kind of fixed from the root cause there, right? So a lot of our clients do struggle with, Hashimoto's, hypothyroidism, IBS, which is, irritable bowel syndrome. We do have some clients that have Crohn's, simply chronic bloating, doesn't have to be a diagnosis. It could be the bloating, the brain fog, the acne, no energy. Painful periods is a really, really big one. I don't think I've ever talked to a client, off the bat where they're like, yeah, I don't have painful periods. I don't have any bloating. It's like every single one has brain fog, lack of energy, painful periods, all the things. And then I'm like, okay, have you noticed that like your periods have gotten worse over the years? 100% of the time they say yes. Because that estrogen, so typically when we have, painful periods, our estrogen is going to be pretty high, typically, right? When our gut is damaged and it's not in balance, what our body does is it continues to recycle that same estrogen. While, if let's look at just our personal care products. If we're using personal care products that have synthetic fragrances in it, all these different chemicals, synthetic fragrances come into the body as xenoestrogens, which basically is synthetic estrogens. They mimic the shape of our naturally occurring estrogens. So let's take, first off, our gut is in balance. So our estrogens have continued to kind of stack up already. If we're on birth control, it's going to be even more.
Yep.
Then we take those synthetic fragrances. Okay, we're adding even more, right? And then are we drinking out of plastic water bottles? Are we eating, food out of plastic? Are we heating our food up in plastic, right? All of that is going to come in as xenoestrogens, right? And like I already said, about 60% of our T4 to T3 conversion happens in the liver. So if we're backing up our liver, our gut is damaged and it's those estrogens are not able to kind of detox out of our body, yes, we're going to see more of those painful periods coming on over and over and over again, getting worse over and over and over, right? Because that estrogen is building up and it has no release, right? So I would say like 90 to 100% of the people I talk to, the women I talk to, that's what they're dealing with.
Yeah.
As time goes on and they're like, oh, this is just normal. Because I think people do that a lot. It's just like, okay, this is what I'm dealing with. I've dealt with this for a couple of years. It compounds with something else. And it's like all of this begins to just feel normal, right? So then they let it go and now it's like, oh, now it's Hashimoto's. Now it's, now it's Crohn's. Now it's IBS. Now it's all of these things that are actual diagnoses. But if we can actually go back to kind of the beginning there, what created that to happen, right? It's the gut. So if we can kind of reverse all of that inflammation, open up our detox pathways, make sure that we're cleaning up kind of our diet and our lifestyle in general so that we're not overburdening those toxins while we're trying to kind of open up those detox pathways, 9.9 times out of 10, we see partial to complete reverse of, the things that these people are dealing with because, again, we're going back to that root cause, right? And we're supporting the body in the way that the body is designed to work. But because of our kind of modern day lifestyle, it no longer works the way that it should, right? So we kind of just support everybody and kind of getting back to that baseline. And, the body is very smart. We don't give our body much credit, but it's smarter than we think it is. So if we can give it what it needs, it knows how to heal. It knows how to feel better. It knows how to kind of regenerate, right? So we just kind of help your body along, if that makes sense.
Yeah. You touch on something that my functional medicine doctor talks a lot about too, is it may be common, but it's not normal.
Yes, I love that. I say that all the time.
Which is so unfortunate for everybody. You pointed out this earlier. Jumping into bad gut health with probiotics is not good for you. But the question is, what would be a good first step for somebody who is like, I have all of these issues, but I don't have either the access to get into speaking with somebody like yourself or just the time to just change over everything. What would be like a good first step to kind of see if that would be, if they see any changes and then they're like, oh, well, then I probably should shift from this traditional medicine to try and find somebody who's going to help me a little bit more down this path that I've already seen some progress with.
Sure. So I could totally hear how this could seem really overwhelming of like, I need to change all of these things all at once and change my whole lifestyle. And just to kind of like give anybody that's listening some peace of mind, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. And we actually kind of encourage it to not be all or nothing because we want it to be sustainable, right? So like little by little, we're implementing little things to kind of master each week, right? Because again, we want to go into that nervous system, more of that mindset, right? Because when we can accomplish things and we are able to do it and carry it out and hit that goal, we're going to create more of that self-trust, right? That self-confidence. So then when we go on to the next week of our lessons, you're going to feel like you can do these things because we've built up kind of that self-esteem, right? And that's so very real. But if it, I would say, going back to the nervous system, if it's somebody that just, doesn't have money for anything, right? And they just, they're dealing with the bloating, the brain fog, all the things. I would say focus on your nervous system. When you get up in the morning, don't scroll on your phone first thing. Get in front of the window, get some sunlight in, do some breath work. That takes literally 2 minutes, right? So we could do this 4, 7, 8. So breathe in your nose for a count of 4, hold it for a count of 7, breathe out of your mouth completely for a count of 8. You can do that 3 times in a row. That's been shown to reset the nervous system, right? So when we wake up in the morning, we're waking up because of a surge in cortisol, whether it's you're naturally, just waking up or your alarm is going off. So from that point on, it's our job to kind of bring that back down, okay? A lot of women, they wake up and they're like, I'm not hungry. I can't eat. It makes me nauseous because your cortisol is skyrocketed, right? So what can you do to kind of bring that down to just kind of normalize those hunger cues? That's going to be huge in and of itself, right? And it's free. So like I said, get in front of the window, do some breath work. If it's warm out, maybe go get your feet in the grass for a few minutes. Maybe some mushrooms, right? Mushrooms are going to be great for, like we talked about, the powders. It's going to be great for your stress. But get in the kitchen and get, a high protein breakfast in within, that first 30 to 40 minutes. Or maybe some light stretching, and just remember to breathe throughout the because I think there's a lot of people, especially me, especially on my days that I'm super busy. Sometimes in my check-ins, I'll talk to, I'll say, don't remember, don't forget to breathe. And then I kind of show them how to do it. And I'm like, oh, I needed that. Like, I didn't realize I wasn't breathing for the last 3 hours, So I think just kind of reminding yourself, let me take a deep breath. Let me remember that, like, whatever I'm doing right now that feels super stressful, it's okay. Like, whether it's done in the next 5 minutes or the next 5 hours, like, it's okay. This is what it is. Like, and kind of just accepting this is what it is and trying to switch that mindset from go, 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 fight or flight to, okay, this is like what I have planned out for the day. Maybe set 3 intentions, for your entire day, get those done. Again, build that self-trust, that self-confidence, free, do it by yourself. But I would say probably that regulating your nervous system would be the best thing that somebody could do free for themselves on their own to begin.
Yeah, I like that a lot too. That's something that I always have focused on and harped on too, especially in the mornings. Because I'm a big believer if you don't start your morning off right, you're probably not going to have the rest of your day planned out as well as you'd want it to. But if you can take that time for yourself in the morning just to really like hone in on where you're at, get the breath work done, just get yourself in an even playing field, then you can start tackling the day a little bit more successful. At least that's how it's worked for me anyway.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be like a whole 30-minute thing. Like, and I think that's what kind of turns people off to a morning routine. And like, I totally get it. Like, when people used to tell me to journal, I'd be like, go F yourself. Like, I'm not journaling anything. It's ridiculous. But if you can just take 5 minutes in the morning, like literally to just look out the window, do some breath work, write those 3 intentions, it will truly be maybe 5 minutes of your time, right? Like, you don't have to do a whole like 15-minute yoga exercise and like a whole thing, it's like, no, we don't have time for that. But like, you can still, regulate the nervous system to some degree with just those 5 minutes.
So
no ice bath in the morning.
Yeah, I was like, so I don't have to dunk my face in like ice water that's mineral water and then rub bananas peels all over my face or anything.
It's so funny. So my assistant coach, like I said, she's very fitness oriented. And when we kind of like came together, she didn't know much about like my side of what I kind of bring to the table. And she was dealing with the brain fog, the acne, all the things. And she was like, I was like, so just tell me, like, what does your morning look like? And she's like, well, I wake up and I go in the bathroom and I rinse my face with really, really cold water. And I'm like, okay, let's not do that anymore.
It's instant.
Yeah, so she was the same way. She was like journaling, like, oh, I just can't, like, it's so silly to me. But like, she's doing all of these things now. She no longer has painful periods. She no longer has acne. She struggled with literally her whole life. No more bloating. She's leaner, eating more, like all the things, right? And it's sometimes we want this magic answer of like, this is what's going to change everything. And it's like, it's really like not that sexy. Healing is not sexy. Like, it is the basics. It's the, you know, really just going back to basics of the boring, right? And kind of mastering that again, because we wake up in the morning, we scroll on our phone. But we maybe go for like a Danish or a donut or, you know, something like that, or our coffee. We go on our coffee and we run out the door, right? It's like, let's just learn to nourish ourselves a little bit.
Yeah. So now that you're doing this business, you've been doing this for a little bit and you've been impacting quite a few lives. My question for you would be, what does success look like for you in like the long run or even the short term?
So I feel like I'm happy. Like I feel like this is where I feel successful. Like I'm able to spend a good amount of time with my son. The way that the business is kind of structured now, it doesn't take too much of my time and we're able to house a lot of women versus kind of when I first started, I was doing like with every single client I had, I was recording videos every single week, kind of giving them their own personalized check-in, right? Versus getting on like that group call and talking to all the ladies, having their check-ins, messaging them separately if need be, and kind of just supporting them in the ways, you know, it's hard without you seeing kind of how it's all laid out, but I feel like I am very happy and I feel like I am at a place where I feel like I've succeeded kind of in being able to help as many people as I can without kind of having that, all right, I can't really take any more clients. I don't really have time for it. We've structured it in a way that we don't really have to turn people away anymore, but can still kind of tailor it to be very customized. It is very customized. You know, not there's not one person that's on the same program as somebody else within that same kind of container, you know. But yeah, I mean, I think even being able to go to Wilmington and afford to come closer to the beach, have my son, you know, grow up on the beach and just have hopefully more of that community where I think we're kind of lacking that here. That's it. I'm not like a complicated person. I think just having like the simple things and being able to enjoy them fully and not be stuck in that like fight or flight of, oh, go to work 8 hours a day and then I need to, you know, make the dinner and do this and the laundry. It's like, you know, I'm able to kind of have that freedom while also helping a lot of people. And I think that's, to me, that's enough.
I like it.
So it sounds like there's a better chance than not you're probably going to be moving out this way.
Oh yeah, no, we definitely are. I think for me, it's definitely the interest rates right now. I'm hoping
yeah.
those to come down. We are going to come back this summer just to kind of see what it's like in the summer. If it's like super crazy.
It's
with,
more
like,
crazy than when you came the first time, but it's manageable depending on where you're at.
yeah. Yeah. So we just kind of want to see it again this summer. But yeah, 100%. We're gonna head that way when we can.
That's awesome. Where did you find your other coach, and kind of how does she play into how the whole business is set up?
So I just feel like it was so meant to be. So she actually used to do body. We followed each other on Instagram for quite some time, and she, I guess body. I'm not too familiar with body, but do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like the beach body workout.
I've
Okay,
heard
okay.
of it. Yeah.
So she did that for many years, and I guess it was like transitioning. Like they weren't doing. I don't know. Like she was.
Oh, that's right. I did hear about that. Yeah.
Yeah. So they like stopped doing the I don't know, the pay plan or whatever that like they
Right.
were. So I reached out to her and I was like, hey, like what are you doing? Like what are you doing from here? I could really use like somebody that kind of does more of like the fitness side, can build out the workouts, answer questions for clients like that. And we just hopped on a call and immediately kind of just like clicked and started building out. So Mind Over Medicine is the business, and then Core Revival is like our program underneath
Right.
Mind Over Medicine. We're hoping to kind of add some other things in there for like prenatal or postpartum or fertility, you know, name that something else. So it's all kind of under Mind Over Medicine, but kind of different containers, if that makes sense. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Then I had another question before I get into my actual last question. I've decided to go on another tangent.
Sounds right.
So you talked about a lot about T3 and T4. Do you notice with a lot of doctors, they're not actually getting the right blood work done to kind of help you with that as well too? Or how do you find out that transition isn't happening?
Yeah, so blood work is great. We actually have a lady who offers testing for us that's more kind of in depth. We're able to see what in the body is actually stressed versus, you know, just seeing that physical blood work, if that makes sense.
Right.
Also, you know, with Western medicine blood work, even if you're looking at like the numbers from, that, and then we're looking at a naturopathic doctor looking at those same numbers, Western doctor might say, hey, these numbers are completely fine, or, they're not great, we need to put you on medication, versus the naturopath might look at it and be like, okay, this is saying that it's in range, but it's actually not in range, right? So we need to kind of look at that and start supporting this system a little bit better. Or they might say, this isn't so bad. We don't need to get on medication right now, right? So yes, we can definitely see that through testing. But, if somebody's coming in and they have a thyroid issue, it really just comes down to, like I said, we need to support that liver. We need to kind of clean up our diet, clean up our lifestyle, so that conversion can start to happen a little bit more naturally, right? Iodine is another one. It's not going to be perfect for everybody, but iodine, a lot of people are, deficient in that.
Right.
That's going to play a huge role in that kind of conversion there as well. So yeah, I don't know. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. I've been big into like blood work and such, as from my functional doctor and stuff too. And then just kind of hearing the back and forth, like, oh yeah, they say it's fine over here, but we actually have an issue here. Or the typical Western doctor isn't running the right blood work to actually get the full picture.
Yeah, a lot of them won't. A lot of them won't run, or they'll say like, oh, that's not necessary. We don't need to do all that. And it's, oh, the insurance won't cover that. And it's like, well, we kind of need to see it. So why not?
Exactly. I actually did a huge panel done, and if I would have went anywhere else, they would have been like, you're healthy, you're in good shape, you don't need it. And come to find out, I was actually working out too hard, too much every week. And they're like, hey, you're actually doing more damage to your heart than you're doing good for what you think you're doing properly.
Yeah. That is, I would say, the biggest issue. I have never worked with a client where like they're eating enough and we're just going to go into a calorie deficit. We always do a reverse diet because everybody is so much under eating.
Oh yeah.
And we're working out. They're like, oh yeah, I work out like 6 days a week, sometimes twice a day, and I eat like 1,300 calories. And I'm like,
what?
Okay,
that's the issue.
Yeah, it's definitely a common issue, is just over working out and under eating.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So my actual real question now, since we are coming up on the time, and I want to be respectful of your time too, is if you could tell your younger self one thing, what would it be?
That it's going to be okay. I think I always felt like I needed to control it, or like it needed to be my way. I need to have this work out the way that I wanted to, because I felt like if I didn't do it, or I didn't have control over these things, like everything's going to fall apart. And kind of going back to, what happened with my son and postpartum, again, I think that had to happen in my life. Like I needed to kind of get to that rock bottom of, Ashley, you can't control this. And like, Ashley, you can't make this better. And like, you're alone. You need to lean on God and like have faith that God is going to get you through it, because I literally had no other choice. And I think if I had learned that lesson earlier in my life, maybe I wouldn't have had to go through that. But yeah, I think I would say don't worry so much about controlling the outcome, because everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, I love it. You have to be in the dark sometimes to realize that the light actually is still there.
Yeah, 100%.
So deep.
Sometimes. Get there sometimes. So, but thank you so much for coming on. I really appreciate you coming on and doing this with us. And maybe when you do move to Wilmington, we can do it in person again.
Yeah, I think this summer, actually, my assistant coach and I are going to come out there. So maybe I will reach out.
Oh, sweet. Yeah.
Please
Great to have you both on.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And where can people reach out, find you, follow everything that you're doing?
So my Instagram is My Nourished Belly. And my other coach is Casey K Fit, and Casey is with a K. We do have our like business Instagram, but we kind of just started it. I think it's mind.over.medicine_community.
Okay.
So you do that, reach out to either of us, kind of just on DM. I think our application's in our bio as well. So yeah.
Cool.
Awesome.
Thank you.
So go ahead and check her out. And for everyone else that is in Wilmington and wants to start a podcast, think about Kent Street Station. That's where we're at now.